Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, Podderoonies. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast for the 100th time. Yes, as Fast X is hitting cinemas, we are going 100 miles an hour to talk about car films, and I am joined by David from the Take 97 podcast, a film podcast. He was messaging me, texting me, emailing me, complaining that he's not going to be on the 100th episodes, as he was very upset last time that he wasn't on it. So here you are. You're on again.
Truthfully so. If you complain enough, you get results. That is the true ultimate destiny that we all have.
Yeah. Yeah, kids.
Obviously, I was joking. We had a dropout guest, so David was very kind and came on to help us out.
Of course. Anything for you guys. Now, I mean, it was so fun last time, so, you know,
Thank you.
What could go wrong this time other than Boaz's webcam?
Yeah.
Boaz is currently blickering. And of course, I'm joined by the best co-host that I could do this podcast with, the brilliant Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
Thought you were going to say you just kind of, found me off the street, it's the last minute. So I'll do.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary that we've got to 100 episodes. It's quite an achievement, I think.
Yeah.
Is that what you can say? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my excitement level for that thing. Yep. Yes, we have. Okay. We've got to 100.
Excitement level, like episode level 100, excitement level.
Yeah. Woo!
Somewhere in the lower region.
Yoo-hoo! I don't know. Should I take my top off? Or?
Please don't. So, David, tell us again about Take 97.
Yeah, so hello everyone, and welcome back to this brilliant atmosphere that is the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is David Ingram, as they have just said. I am the host of Take 97, a film podcast, and we just do reviews of classic films. I say we. I do we a lot. It's literally just me, but it makes me sound like I'm more of a team. I am more than one person.
Yeah, or the royal we,
The royal we. But yeah, literally. So
as is appropriate.
Exactly. But yeah, so I do just a collective of film reviews. I do like top 5s of my top 10 favorite films of a certain genre. I look at specific films, both old and new releases, classic films that I know and love. A lot of them do derive from the massive collection that if you guys put this up on your reel, you can see my lovely part of my collection behind me. I literally just watch so many different things and collect so many different ones. So I like to dive into films that I love, which not necessarily everybody else will like, but it's a good sort of way to share my love of certain films and hopefully open other people up to them. And then ultimately for them to turn around and say, that sucked. Or that was good, which, 50-50 chance of that happening. But yeah, so Take 97, a film podcast. We, the royal we look at all sorts of different things here and, get guests on as well. And, these guys, I haven't got around to this because literally before I could even plan my episode with these guys, they got me back on again. I just can't believe it. It's just so good. But, what can you say? Don't break the winning formula if you've got it. So, but yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we'll get Boaz and Martin back onto my side of the podcast to talk a little bit more horror because we've got a little idea in the pipeline. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I'm really excited for that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to today's episode which, you know, when you presented me this, like literally a couple of days ago, I was very excited to think, oh, what can I do? And initially, I could only think of one film. But thankfully, I did a quick Google search, and I know many, many films that are about cars and car-related topics. Unfortunately, we already did Back to the Future Part 3 last time, so I can't really pick that one.
So, talking about another classic franchise, the Fast and Furious films. Fast X, then, what do we make of this one? Again, it looks very crazy and stupid as how it should do, I suppose.
Yeah. You know, they've made a niche for themselves. So.
It looks like it's got all the villains in there.
Yeah. Aquaman's there. Probably the rest of the Justice League. And
yeah. I mean, to be honest, the cars in the Fast and Furious franchise literally look like Bruce Wayne's private collection 9 times out of 10, don't they? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
More like Batfleck, though. Not Keaton. Because Keaton's more stylish. He's classic. He's vintage. No, we're talking Batfleck.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But I'm excited to see Jason Momoa in it because apparently the director has been like, yeah, it's like the most. Was it? What did they say? Like, it's 1,000% Momoa or something. So I'm like, okay, that sounds good.
It's very intense.
So the movies fail at logic and now they fail at math. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, they're interesting films. I mean, to be honest, I'm not really on board with the Fast and Furious films at all. I'm not on board with them at all. Like, I've watched various of them. Honestly, I think I've lost where I got up to in the franchise. All I know is that we are family. Poor old guy, he's gone now. I'll see you again. Wiz Khalifa, all that stuff, you know, the big trend that it was, and the separating and all the memes that were associated with like going separate ways and everything, you know, like I know all like the jokes and the serious bits and, you know, the we are family and, you know, Vin Diesel's here for the family. But at the end of the day, I don't like, there are many films, which I now reminded myself of that I do know that feature cars that are so much, I don't know, like, you know, it's almost like each Fast and Furious film takes an element from another car film and then just gives it that like bad boy, like American, like, you know, like for people in Britain, you'll understand this. Like if you go to like a Tesco's car park and you come across those boy racers in the Tesco's car park, that's basically what I imagine the British version of the Fast and Furious to be, essentially. But obviously with a little less bank robbery.
And every sequel is at a different supermarket car park.
Yes, literally. You've got Tesco's is the original. And then by the time you get to like the Fast and Furious British edition X, it'll be like Return to Tesco. And
yeah.
With Lidl and Sainsbury's on the way or something, you know.
Yeah, one stop around the corner and then
Waitrose swears vengeance and attacks the cars at some point.
It's interesting that they're bringing back the car races in this film, which is kind of cool, which is what, you know, this franchise was kind of based on.
Kind of started it all, really.
That hasn't been central to the plot in ages. Like, you got to forget that the first one, you know, they were about, you know, racing and heists, and now like they're just flat out superheroes, you know.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they went to space in the last one. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
I think that was insane. I think that was a case of, you know, everybody was taking a piss, and I took the piss as well because Fast 8 or whatever. Do you know? I hate how they number them because it's like Fast 5, Furious 7. Like, there's not a consistent fucking title for these, you know. It's really irritating.
They just pick either Furious or Fast now and put whatever numbers there.
Yeah, Furious or Fast, and then throw a number in it, and it's really confusing.
And then you get the inevitable with the spin-off where they just like, do you know what? A Fast and Furious, it's like Star Wars, like a Star Wars story, but they just add in like 2 main characters that everyone seems to like or thinks they like, and then they just go, yeah, we'll sell this, they'll be fine.
Yeah. Or who can't stand Vin Diesel anymore? So like ship them off.
No. I think, to be honest, the last one, it won't be called. It'll be you see, it could be one of 3 things. You could either do like the final Fast and Furious film. It could either be the Furious Family, or The Fast Family. But to be honest, The Fast Family sounds a bit like a really crappy comedy show, to be honest with you. And I don't think that would really sell to the Fast and Furious family, as it were.
The Fast Show spin-off.
Oh God, yeah. Can you imagine?
It'd be funny that the Fast Family, it could be that they're on a diet, so they're fasting.
And maybe they do become superheroes, and we learn that secretly it's part of the DC universe, and they're all speedsters.
Oh man, that would be incredible. One of my favorite, and I've said this so many times on the podcast, but I'll say it again. One of my favorite things that they keep getting asked about is to do a Jurassic Park spin-off. Will they do a crossover with Fast and the Furious and Jurassic Park, because they're both owned by the same company? I think they're both. Is it Universal?
Yes.
Yeah. They've been asked this so many times, and they're like, "That sounds crazy." But although Vin is like on board with it, one of the comments for this is just burrowed into my brain, where somebody was like, "They should call it Jurassic Parking," and I was like, "That is amazing. That is just such good material. They need to do this."
That's perfect. That's comedy gold.
And then I thought it would be great as well as if they have like the Transformers crossover as well. That would be great, because like the cars could be Autobots or whatever, and
Oh, that's cool.
I think this writes itself. They could do this.
It literally does.
And Tyrese Gibson can be two parts.
So good. This is like the better end of like Cowboys versus Aliens. This is where Cowboys versus Aliens, that was the groundwork for what will be the Jurassic Park, Transformers, Fast and Furious mega crossover.
Absolutely. You just take two insane things and you smush them together. They should do it. Because right now, I think everybody that goes, that's ridiculous. Like, it was ridiculous to send them to space. Like, I remember everybody joked before that movie. They were like, what are they going to do next? Send them to space? Yeah, they wouldn't be that stupid. They did it. So I don't think they give a fuck now. They don't care. So, it prints money.
As long as you keep Vin Diesel happy, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I think they should just have, the Guardians of the Galaxy visit. Just have every franchise that they just get involved in.
I mean, Vin Diesel is Groot at the end of the day, so...
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It works.
I think that works, yeah. To be honest, he's got about as many lines as Groot in the new Fast fucking movies. Every goddamn word, family, familia.
Yeah. Instead of like, we are Groot, I am Groot, I am family. We are family.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
It's such a tiresome message. Like, they really, it's a dumb film series. Like, obviously I have fun with it. I've watched every one, obviously, and I'm like, okay, they're kind of cool, but they are so stupid. Completely brain dead movies, but
So David, then what is your choice for car film?
So my choice for car films, it's a little bit more vintage. There is a car chase, like any good car film should have, and there's a brilliant cliffhanger, and it literally is a cliffhanger by the end of this film, because there is a literal cliff featured in this, and it is the 1969 classic comedy caper that is starring Sir Michael Caine himself. Because we were only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Yeah.
And that is the Italian Job from 1969. Which, because when you guys came to me and asked me, we need you to fill this spot. It's about car films. What would you pick? Initially, all I could think of was Disney Pixar's Cars. Don't ask me why. It's the only one I could think of. My mind went blank. But I was like, no. Do a Google search. Double check your library. Check what you've got. Check what you've seen. And I was like, oh, no, I've seen more. So obviously, other ones that came to mind in contention for this, because I know you guys like to know what might have been, potentially.
What other films were you thinking about?
What other films were I thinking about? I've just cut you up on your own show. I'm so sorry.
That's right.
It's because I'm so used to the script now. I'm so good. But yeah, the films that I considered, so yeah, obviously, Disney Pixar Cars was one of them. Speaking of Transformers, funnily enough, Bumblebee was another one that I'd considered as well. And then the other one that I'd actually considered, I did write it down. I could have gone for the new Italian Job, but people who know me personally will know that I don't know why, but I have some severe hatred against that new one. I don't know what it is, but it's not the original. It's not got Michael Caine in it. It's just, there's minis in it, and it's got Mark Wahlberg of all people in it. I just can't stand it. I just Don't get it.
I feel like they only made it because of the new design of the Mini Cooper. That's it. They're like, oh yeah, we got to make a new film now.
Exactly. It's a marketing campaign at its best.
I think I watched an interesting thing that said, the villain in the remake was Edward Fight Club. You know who I'm talking about?
Edward Norton.
Edward Norton, that's the one. Yeah. So yeah, he was the villain in that, but he didn't want to star in it, but he was contractually obligated to, because like he had signed a contract that he had to do so many films for the studio, and this was one that he was forced to do, but he didn't like it, and he didn't like the whole.
Oh well,
thing.
Poor Edward Norton. Never mind.
Yeah.
We won't blame him for that. We'll just blame contractual agreements for that poor taste.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I picked The Italian Job, the original 1969 one, because it's the one that really, when people mention car films, I do obviously I think of Disney Pixar cars as my inner child, but then the next one's obviously being Back to the Future, which we kind of covered already, and then obviously the likes of Transformers, but the one that is truly the one that sticks with me the most is The Italian Job, because although it's much older than me, and I'd say both of us, all three of us, I should say, it's the oldest film that we've done so far. At least I wouldn't have seen it in its original screening form.
Well, I'm 80, so I don't know.
But I also seen it many times at the cinema when it came out.
That speaks volumes for itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
I take good care of myself.
Oh, yeah. Bless you. No, but the film is the film is it's a great comedy caper, and I'll just give you a quick overview of it. Essentially, what happens with The Italian Job?
David, what happens in The Italian Job?
Oh, sorry. Right, let me rewind. You do the sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself today,
dude. You're forgetting whose show you're on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're in charge here.
I'll just go make a cup of tea, another one, and you carry on.
I'm sorry. No, I'll let you do the intro. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah.
David, what happens in The Italian Job?
Well, what happens in The Italian Job? I'm glad you asked. So basically, as I've just said, Michael Caine is the main character. So Michael Caine as a character called Charlie Croker, and he also co-stars Noel Coward as a character called Mr. Bridger, who's like the main big sort of. He's a bit like Vito Corleone then in The Godfather. He's like the big guy at the top. He's like the big man at the top of the chain who's like everyone worships this man. But we'll get back to him in a minute. We've also got highlights from Benny Hill as a character called Professor Simon Peach, who personally is one of my favorite character highlights against, second after Michael Caine. But yeah, essentially this film, like I said, it's a comedy caper, and it goes through all it is really. He's a bunch of British, very typical 60s, like criminal thieves of the 60s, like late 60s, are trying to steal a massive amount of gold bullion. I think I got the actual amount down. It was like 24,000 or something. It's a great amount of gold bullion anyway that they've got to try and get hold of. And essentially the film opens up with a sequence which shows a heist for said bullion, and it is a failed heist. The character, I think it's Roger Beckerman, sorry, I should say. He dies whilst undertaking the heist. The mafia catch up with him, the Italian mafia, which just says so many things when you say that word out loud. The Italian mafia. They catch up with Roger Beckerman, and he fails the heist. And Charlie, who's played by Michael Caine, gets out of prison, and then he learns of this, and he takes up the heist. And we just basically see the planning of the heist. We go through the heist, and then we lead on to the ending of the film, the most famous ending, which we'll discuss in more detail as we get on, as we talk about what we like, what we don't like about the film and such. But I think it's a quintessentially brilliant cliffhanger, and I always overstate that, but it's a brilliant pun on the cliffhanger term anyway. But I do love it. But yeah, no, that's basically it. Fun heists with Mini Coopers in the middle as well, because it is a car film at the end of the day. So that's how they get the bullion.
So Boaz, initial reactions to this one?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I know of this film obviously, and I know there's only supposed to blow the bloody bleeding doors off. I also vaguely do remember the ending, so I think I may have watched this as a child, but like this is so far back into the recesses of my mind, so it was. Like watching it, like for the first time because I couldn't remember anything. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this quite a few times as a kid. It kind of seems to be on TV a lot, like on holiday periods, like Christmas, Easter, you name it. It's on the TV an awful lot back in the day. Not so much now, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed it during those times. Like rewatching it for this, I was just like, was this supposed to be really good? I'm not sure. It is now, especially there are some scenes which are very dated. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh yes.
Watching it now.
Yeah, there's quite a lot that's
very
pretty dated. Yeah.
But certainly the highlights of this film is very much the end and the great. I still think that Mini Cooper chase is brilliant, and the cliffhanger is just a classic ending of British cinema. So certainly the last 20 minutes is still brilliant. A lot before that, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. I would kind of get, there's a lot of, I don't know, just sort of meandering about for quite a bit, but yeah, it's still pretty good.
So directing then, I quite like the opening scene of the film where a guy is in a beautiful red Lamborghini. He's driving around the Alps, and when he enters the tunnel, it crashes into a digger. And I quite liked how all these Italian bad guys are standing on top of the tunnel and up the mountain for no reason at all, in sync. But it just gives you a sense of how bad these guys are. But I do wonder how many cars have crashed into the digger before they get the right guy.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
It's like, oh, let's see if it's the British guy. No, get rid of the car. Put the digger back in place and wait for him.
Yeah, I quite like that because that came out so unexpectedly, and what was it? He goes through, you're just kind of the camera's sort of tracking him, inside the car, outside the car, the beautiful scenery, and he's humming along, and he just goes through the tunnel, and it's shot. It doesn't follow him through the tunnel like it's been following him everywhere else. It stays on the end of the tunnel, and he goes through, and it's dark, and then crash, and then the radio cuts off, and you're like, what is going on? And then then as you say, you got all the Italian guys, and then the digger comes out, and it's got the car pancaked, and then they throw it off the hill. So I thought that was done really cool.
I think the scene later when the mafia catch Charlie and co in the Alps, and they smash the cars, and the digger pushes Charlie's Aston Martin over the cliff. It's just a very upsetting scene, really. When they destroy those beautiful cars, it's just oh dear.
Honestly, I feel like anyone involved in any of these, any car film that employs the use of classic vintage cars, even in the back when this was made, so back in the 60s, when some of the cars arguably were probably not vintage, they were more probably brand new, but still equally as depressing to see them get destroyed. But you must think there's got to be somebody out there that's the people on set going, oh my god, it's gone, it's destroyed. It's so we just broke this beautiful piece of motor craftsmanship, and then you got some sick sadistic person on the side who's destroy them all. And I'm just it's they say it every time about the amount of DB5s or Aston Martin cars for James Bond they went through for the various sequences that they've done over the years, that they've actually either blown up, done a barrel roll for, or anything that they've done stunt-wise that is involved in explosions. It makes you sort of wonder, what sort of mind comes up, oh, it's a brilliant car, a great action sequence, but we're going to have to wreck a lot of cars.
It's very upsetting in recent cinema, especially with Aston Martins in the Bond films as well. They seem to destroy them all. I'm seriously, can we have a film where the Aston Martin survives the end of the film, please? It seems like every film it gets utterly destroyed.
Yeah, well, it's a Bond tradition now, isn't it?
In the Daniel Craig one, Skyfall, it gets riddled with bullets. No Time to Die, 2 massive scrapes along the side.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not cool, people.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? I think for me, it's always heartbreaking when you see a red car. I don't know what it is, but when you get a vintage red car, I'm not saying I don't care about the Aston Martin DB5, because that was heartbreaking when they blew up in the Bond films. But I think whenever you get a nice, pristine red car that proper race car, proper vintage sort, and you just think, no, you can't blow that up. No, you can't break that. No, please don't. And then they do. And you're just like, no! Why do you do this?
I think to imagine like how many other cars did they get if the take wasn't quite right.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh
God.
man, that was
Can you imagine?
yeah, that was a terrible destruction.
You do not want to watch like the behind the scenes stuff of like how many cars they chucked over this side.
Yeah. It's the one time I'm not interested in the behind the scenes facts. Like, nope,
Yeah.
nope, don't want to know, don't want to know.
And also, it's the one scene where you kind of wish if it was made today and they kind of did that sort of same scene, you hope they used CGI in that,
Yes.
not a real car.
Or at least something that looks very much like it from a distance, but
Yeah.
you don't actually see it. You just see a car, or if you do a miniature and make the toy fall and just like blow a toy car up. A really good model.
So moving on to like the heist, then the beginning parts, like I felt with the heist, it's pretty slick apart from the whole water cannon thing. But they don't play on the tension enough for me. Like before they set off and chase the gold van, they're just like kind of waiting for it. And you can see they're trying to do something with that, but they just act out what's in the script, really. And when the police are like bashing down the door in the house, again, you're never on the edge of your seat. Michael Caine just lines up the men and that's about it. It falls a little bit flat for me, but I think you're just waiting for them to get in the minis, really, in those parts. So I don't know if you guys felt that. But.
To be honest, yeah, I kind of did. Like, as much as I like the scene, I think it's more fun than tension building or massively exciting. And I think because everything goes completely according to plan, and I think if you wanted a lot more tension, you'd have something go wrong or something be cut by the wire or whatever. But everything goes like perfectly. Actually, I find not only do other heist films, put way more tension, it's kind of formulaic, I guess, that there's a lot of tension on the heist. There's a lot of action, but no tension on this heist. But what's kind of funny is the tense bit comes right at the end when they're meant to go away with the money, and they might not be able to get it,
Yeah.
and then it cuts off there, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I think I kind of agree. I do think the heist though is brilliant, but yeah, there it goes off a little too well, I think, maybe.
Because I think the part that goes wrong is the fact that they lose their backup. That, as we've mentioned, that was the backup. All those fast cars going off the edge.
Yeah,
when the mafia catch them, that's the only real thing that goes wrong, really.
Yeah, it's just like we got to just do it with what we got.
But you never really felt that they were in massive jeopardy that anything was going to go wrong.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's more like I feel like this film in general. Like, I do agree with what you both say. And I probably go to the extent of like saying that the reason that it is, it's providing a sense of entertainment and a visceral entertainment from like voyeuristic perspective of being able to experience that thrill and that sort of burst of like, oh, this is exciting kind of thing when you watch the heist, rather than the whole like they do nowadays or in any other type of heist film where you're like, oh, are they going to get away with it? Is the actual plan going to... Because obviously every heist film, you see the plan, you see the execution, and you see the fallout. 9 times out of 10, there is something that goes wrong, but, it seems to go very slickly in this film. And I think it's more... You want to make sure that they definitely succeed, but at the same time, you get that thrill of knowing they will succeed, and then that's it. But it's more... if you're going in that one direction, what's going to happen next? And then ultimately, because they end the film on this literal cliffhanger and you don't know how they're going to get out of this situation, that's the tension that you leave the audience with. Not necessarily the actual, like, any events during. Because, like, any film really has its moments in the middle where you get the false start and you think, oh, the hero or even the bad guy is not going to make it out alive. Yeah. And then they somehow turn it around. Whereas this, it doesn't really have that turnaround. It's much more slick and much more
straightforward, really.
In your face straightforward to the point. And this is what you're doing with the story. And, it kind of takes you by surprise by the end, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would also say, like, story-wise, I guess, story-wise. But, I suppose even with directing, like, there's far more tension prior to the heist. So you do feel like the mafia are kind of an omnipresent force, like they can just appear and disappear at will. like they're everywhere. They're behind every camera, behind every person. And you do get this feeling, and and then that whole scene. I thought they were going to do something with that when he has to get his girlfriend onto the next plane because he's worried for her safety, and like the mafia guys are following her, and they just seem to be everywhere. So I thought there was a lot of tension there. But then when it comes to the actual thing, they're not really a big deal.
No.
Yeah,
it's a strange one because the tones are very up and down, aren't they?
Yeah, I think tone is the key word here with this film. I kind of still stick with what I was saying, that like there could have been a little bit more tension here and there, but not too much, because otherwise you're going to lose this tone of this very British comedy caper.
Absolutely.
Of really enjoying the moment and enjoying the heist. I think there's a fine balance there, and I feel like maybe the balance is just too much with focusing on the comedy stuff, which doesn't always land to make it feel like timeless watching it today.
Yeah,
sure.
It's very much, you go like the beginning, it goes like serious because you get the failed heist and you establish what they're up against with the mafia. And you get comedy in the build up to it, and then you think you're going to get tension, but it's mostly comedic with a bit of action. And then there's a bit of tension, obviously, that slips in, but it could have been more, as you said. And then you get the final bit where you're a bit like, what the hell? But also you're laughing your pants off by the end of it because of certain things that go on.
Yeah, the last 20 minutes is definitely my favourite scene with the minis. I love the visual gags in the chase. I thought they were all brilliant. Like the minis just driving past a wedding. That was funny. But I love the audacity to drive them up on top of the roof of a stadium.
Oh, that was
with a specially built ramp so they could get them up there.
Yeah.
And they disappear somehow, losing the cop car. Then they escape driving back down the way they came. It's utterly stupid, but funny.
Yeah.
There are some really impressive jumps across the rooftops.
Yeah, I thought that was
and
good.
the Mini driving across the river probably took some working out and testing. And it still looks great for me, that bit.
I like how the cop didn't even try it on the roof. They do the jumps and he just stops. He's like, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
No way!"
Oh yeah.
I think the only thing that was odd to me was the fact that they left it quite late for the music to kick in. Like half the chase was done before the music starts, which was a shame for me personally. I would have wanted more music in there, but yeah, that stadium one was just hilarious.
Oh god, it's brilliant. Love that bit. It's so good.
And also through the plaza looked amazing, like where they're just going, or is it Piazza or whatever, the square, with all the
Piazza.
Piazza, with all the signs and stuff. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can really get a feel of the skill level of the driving through those early scenes as well in the chase. That can't be easy at all.
Yeah.
Is that everyone's favorite scene?
I mean, yeah, I'd say probably the mini stuff in that last 20 minutes. It's all brilliant. I love it. And it is, to be honest, it sounds really pathetic to say, like really obvious to say, but it is the bit that everyone, because everyone thinks, you think of the Italian Job, you look for the minis, and like, I mean, obviously for me personally, this film, there is other moments. Obviously, the very ending is a highlight because it's the highlight of the film next to the actual minis' presence within the film itself. But I'm going to take it back to what we were talking about. Well, what I briefly mentioned earlier in the introduction of the film, and that is Michael Caine's. So Michael Caine's legendary line: "You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off." Which it's ingrained into British culture, and it's such a to be honest, the amount of times even if you see it like once, it's not even the funniest line, but there's something about it that just sort of like, I feel it's the reactions and everything. It's not the way he says it is very, it's Michael Caine, it's his voice, it's very, oh yeah, East End London, all that. But I just think that ultimately it's the reactions from the other character that's with him and like the other people around him, Arthur, and just the Arthur, the combinations of everything put together. You got the actual explosion, which is like, oh, and then you get something that's really out of the blue that just comes in with, I asked you only to blow the bloody doors off, and then literally, like it's just the look on Arthur's face where he's just there like, I know, sir, but obviously we're packing more. And you never know, these mafia types might be after us with some high explosives. We need the upper hand. And, like, obviously, Charlie Croker, I feel like he's, Michael Caine's character is very much, sophisticated gentleman. He, in my opinion, rivals James Bond, but in terms of, he's like the on-the-ground James Bond then, but, like, if James Bond became a thief, so... Like, he's very genteel, he's very British in that classic sense. But I just think that ultimately, it's that nice, like we say, the mixture of tones. I love the tone of, you got this big bang explosion, which excites the audience, like people do in action films today. And you got this very quintessential, British, telling someone off, saying it's only bloody that, you bloody idiot. It just sounds so British that you think, he doesn't F or blind or anything like that. He just say, you bloody idiot. I just think ultimately, the last is so good. It just gets me every time, to be honest. It does make me chuckle, even though it's not laugh out loud funny every time you see it.
It's such a line that's ingrained in British culture that you can't help but like know what's coming, in the film, even if you haven't even seen the film. It's coming, and you always kind of have to have a little giggle there. But I can imagine like the R-rated version. Imagine if they didn't even test the doors and they did it in the eyes for real. You're like, oh my,
he's dead.
He's supposed to blow
We're
the
all
fucking
dead.
doors off.
Oh my god.
Then you would have some proper like tension in the highs. They've just blown up half their crew.
Nah, it's where they end it. Instead, they end it with instead of like the cliffhanger, they end it with like they're perfectly fine, it's all good, they're on the road, they're on the home stretch, and then all of a sudden they go, oh boss, what do I do with this dynamite? What do I do with the dynamite we tested on the Mini? It's like, and then Arthur goes, or Professor Simon Peach, I've pushed the button, sir. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, no, you're not supposed to push the bloody fucking button. And then bang.
I liked, that scene basically towards the end when Bridger, is been told that they've got all the money, that they're victorious.
Yeah,
I quite like that.
Oh, that's a brilliant scene.
That's pretty good. Great. Where he's just going down, and all the prisoners in the because Bridger is not only the mastermind behind this and he's funding this. Like, he's the warden, so he's like a master criminal and the warden of the jail. And I like that. He's just going round and like everybody's celebrating. It's like England, 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 yeah, England, yeah. Well, that was amazing.
Boaz, directing score, what should we go with? I would go like a 7.4.
Yeah, that's actually kind of what I was thinking. I was actually thinking 7.3, but 7.4.
Yeah, because I think, the directing of the final chase is still pretty cool. I still really enjoy that a lot. It's just a lot of the other stuff, is pretty...
I don't think it's
standard, I would say.
Yeah, that's the word I would use. It's not bad, but it's standard. It's like it's filmed as one ought to film a movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Not a lot of flair there.
Yeah, not a lot of flair. Yeah.
David?
To be honest, I'd agree with you. I'd round it up. I'd make it a nice healthy 7.5 for me personally. But to be honest, I would give like not much difference in opinion really with what you guys said. Like you've got the flair of the final 20 minutes of like, the excitement of the minis and, that cliffhanger, like little comedy moments here and there. But I do agree that throughout the film in terms of like, it's changing tone is fine, but I do think there are certain bits that, like you say, they do plod along a little bit, and you think kind of waiting for the next bit, the good bit to happen. Like if you're like you say, if you know the film, like because of the line "blow the bloody doors off," or that there's a mini chase, or if you're looking forward to those bits, then you'll be looking forward to those bits solely.
Or an explosion, anything that blows up, anything
that blows up, so you won't be willing or at least expecting to have to wait so long for those bits to come on. Obviously it's not the longest film in the world, but I'd say in terms of that it does plod a little bit in places, and obviously it is a film of the 60s as well, so it's not like the films of today. Like it's not quite Fast X in space, but but I'd say 7.5 for my direction score overall.
Sure.
Cool. Screenplay then. It's interesting that they don't really go into much detail about how the heist is going to be done. You have like an idea, but you don't get like much of a training montage at all. Like you have a few minis drive through through that ramp, and then of course you have the classic blowing up the van scene. There's quite a big wide shot of Charlie pointing at a blackboard about the plan, but it's quite vague still, and I actually quite like that. Like, the film isn't spoiling anything for the action in the actual heist, but I do find it funny how Freddy thinks he's talking about the heist like it's a documentary to camera. And after Freddy is done, like, the mafia boss just like walks right up to the camera. It just seems really weird. Like, who is this cameraman? What? I'm only a mafia boss.
What is he doing in my dark room?
I thought that was a bit too on the nose, because that's for Bridger to realize, to inform him that the mafia knows. But I thought they could have done that a lot more subtle, especially with
just a little bit.
I think he pauses the film a lot earlier, where that same mafia guy is like pretending to read the paper. And I'm like, okay, that is pretty innocuous. However, you could just have it like that.
Just stop it there.
But why does he have to come all the way up to the camera where you're like, obviously he was paying attention. Obviously he's following the guy. Like, that is so on the nose. Like, I think maybe they just thought the audience might be too stupid to sort of get it. It's like,
The thing is, though, with like that bit, I feel like, I'm not saying it's 100%. I'm correct. Like, people can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, if you think about the last Michael Caine film that was quite successful, obviously he was in several films before The Italian Job, but one of the films he was in that was before this was actually was Alfie, where he did a lot of talking to the audience. So maybe there's a part of them, the people who made this film, maybe they thought, oh, you know what, it worked for Michael Caine and Alfie. Maybe we can switch up a bit to some of the other characters in The Italian Job, and the audience will, they'll feel a bit included, and it'll be funny because it worked in Alfie. Alfie's a completely different film altogether, but it didn't have half as many explosions of the physical variety rather than the sexist sexual variety, or that kind of thing. But it was, I just think maybe they thought it was a thing they might be able to put in and make it a little bit more interesting and deviate from the standard. Here's the plan. Here's the heist.
It's the mafia boss.
It's the mafia boss. Here he is telling you his plan.
No, I think it's just because Noel Coward's probably just got really bad eyesight, and he's like, I have no fucking clue who I'm looking at. Can he walk towards the camera, please? I, really like the mafia plot in this film. Like, the scene on the Alps where they destroy the really nice cars is fantastic. Like the opening scene, the mafia are, made to look like a big deal. But as you kind of said, Boaz, during the heist, they're not a player in it at all. There's like no threat at all from them. So in the end, I was like, why are they in this film?
Because it's mainly the Italian police that are trying to stop them. You don't see any like machine gun wielding mafioso guys. I think it's essentially, because there's a bit with the mafia guy, I think is talking to the cops or something. So, obviously I think he's got some sort of influence. Maybe. But I guess you didn't need. Well, I think it would have been nice if they had showed up. He had somehow was involved in the heist a bit, or the ending. I think that would have been better.
I think it would have been nice as well if they like you say, so they were more involved. If they kept everything the same, but it would have been nice if the reason why the bus, rather than just the bus skids, and then they're too jolly, and they're not paying attention properly to the driving. Rather than that, it would have been nicer, a little bit more like making the mafia more involved. If they planted something, I'm not. It sounds a bit too high tech for the 60s, really. Now I think if they planted something to maybe make the bus go awry, and then that leads them to that.
They could have set up a roadblock like on the mountainside, and then when he swerves to avoid it, then
and that makes them skid maybe or something.
Just to have them a little bit more involved towards the end.
Because really, ultimately, you just get that. There's mafia that they're running away from, but realistically, all they're running away from is the police.
Who would have been after them regardless, because what they're doing is illegal.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a bit weird, really.
Yeah, I that said, like before that, I do like the mafia presence in the movie. I do think it's pretty it's pretty good, and especially how when they threaten them with the digger and everything, and they're just like everywhere. They're all over the goddamn hills. They're behind them. They just kind of materialize. Then push the cars off the thing. And you're like, they could easily kill them. They're all packing guns. None of the good guys pack guns. You can tell Michael Caine is a bit, do you know what I mean? He's putting on a front, he's got any sort of control in the situation.
It would have been funny if you had like a lot of the mafia henchmen just in the chase on foot as well, just running after them.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. I even like that line where the mafia guy afterwards, he goes, Britain is that way. It's a long walk, and then turns around and walks. And then all the other mafia guys disappear. I thought that was a really great exit.
I think also it would have been nice as well, because this is a comedy caper. It would have been quite good if, like you say, so have them involved in the chase. Maybe if a few of them got knocked down, but I would have been a little bit if you make the R-rated version. We get them knocked down by each of the minis, like at each turn, like here they come around the corner, boom, 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 and then they're just like gone, and like, oh no, we killed another Italian mafioso. I don't care, Charlie, just keep driving.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Benny Hill is in this film.
No, I don't either. I'm so glad that you said that, because honestly, like Noel Coward is a respectable actor. He's up there. He's meant to be, the power. He's an old actor of the old guard. Yeah. Michael Caine, new on the scene. He's all right. He's with the ladies, young for the ladies, all that stuff. Benny Hill, no clue why he's there. What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Firstly, he's a sex pest. Like, he's introduced in this very awkward scene played at the time for laughs that he raped the housekeeper Annette, and that's why he's in this special home. Like, plus he's supposed to be this clever professor, of which is not specified, I don't think.
Yeah,
and all he has to do is like change the traffic light tapes around. That's it. I feel like anybody could do that. Then after that, he tries it on with this like big Italian lady on helium. That character is pointless and creepy.
Because doesn't she get like stuck on the bus, so he has to push her ass onto the bus, and then later she's got to go to, was it the station, and he does the same thing, pushes her ass through the door.
Oh no. Yes, he does. It makes me laugh. We were questioning why the mafia weren't used at certain points. The reason why is because they wasted the budget on scenes with Benny Hill.
Yeah. I think that's the case.
Like, they could. It's like, we can't fit. We've got to stick to an hour and a half. We've got to stick to an hour and a half. Oh, and we've already used too much time for Benny Hill. We don't quite have enough time for this really cool confrontation between the mafia boss and Michael Caine. No, we're just going to have to cut it down because, Benny Hill, because it's Benny Hill. I'm like, no, why? Why did you do this?
They were focusing too much on framing up that woman's ass properly, so he's pushing
it. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I need an extra wide lens for that. What would have been funny if it was like the Mafia Don's like mother or something like that, and like it makes it personal.
Oh, no. No, honestly, it just makes me cringe every time. Yeah. Like, that's the one thing when I rewatch The Italian Job, I'm just like,
why are you in this film?
Why?
Yeah. Obviously I love Michael Caine and I like his character in this. Like, he's got this sort of, I don't know how to explain it. Like, he's a leader, and can what have you, but he's also very like down to earth and kind of sarky, and I think he's a great character. And also you were talking about like in Alfie that he would sort of talk to the audience. He doesn't talk to the audience, but he does think out loud quite a lot. And I do find that quite funny.
He does.
I think one of my favorite ones is where he's on the phone to, was it Camp?
Oh, Camp Freddy.
Camp Freddy.
Yeah.
He's on the phone to him trying to convince him of the heist. And he's like, but it's big. And he goes, big? You wouldn't know how to spell big. And he's like, B-I-G.
Yeah. Big.
Yeah, big. B-I-G. Big.
Of course I can.
But I find that funny because he doesn't even say that to Freddy. He's like saying it to himself. It's like, I think I know how to spell it, Oh, that was kind of funny.
So the last scene then, where the bus is teetering over the edge in the Alps, is probably like the scene with the most tension in the film. Like, it's brilliant how you see the environment go up and down when Michael Caine like moves. But I do love it how they leave it on a literal cliffhanger, as we've all said, and these guys don't make it. And it kind of reminds you that these guys aren't good people. They are actually criminals.
Yeah. Well, they just stole 4 million of them.
But I think the only way they survive is if a car comes to help them, then they get arrested, of course.
And the car has like tow cables or something. Like it can actually tow the bus.
I mean, is that the only way, or are these just dead men right now?
I mean, that's the thing, you see.
Well, I do find it funny because I think the ending can spark so many theories because Michael Caine says he has an idea. Yeah. He knows how to get out of this. And then it stops. So you don't even know what his idea is. You don't know if it works. And I think this is great because it gets people to speculate. It gets people to go, here's how I reckon they could. And you could watch loads of videos on it where people are trying to work out how he can... how they can get away with the gold.
But I just feel like, how though? I don't know how they get the gold. They're dead.
I mean, it's all to do with, it's all the weight distribution, isn't it?
I feel like some of them could just survive. Like a few of them can jump out and some of them die. Yeah. And get the gold later.
Or they could get one guy, maybe the driver, to get out and then just try and find some stuff that's really heavy. Like boulders or whatever, and put them into the...
I mean, they're on a cliff face. They'd be able to find some rocks, probably, I imagine. Yeah. So they'd be able to counterweight it that way.
Yeah,
maybe.
Exactly. They just need more weight on their end, and then he can just walk and get the gold.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, the driver is called, like, Big William, so he's a big dude.
Yeah.
So if they get him to go to the other side of the bus, like, that could work.
That could work, yeah.
Forgot about the driver.
Or I'd say they get maybe the lightest person to go out and search for heavy things, and then maybe you can counterweight.
Yeah,
I think that's a way.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, unless someone had a rope and they were like, right, tie me up, Charlie, get me in, and lower the lightest person so that they can retrieve the gold. But then obviously they'd have to be the lightest and the strongest, which would obviously be a bit of a contradiction there, because I don't think that would work either way.
Yeah, exactly,
but there's so many videos that explain the theory of how they could have got out of it.
Yeah, there's so many videos that they break it. I guess you could even make like a sort of rope out of everybody's clothes, like everybody get naked, tie your clothes together.
Yeah, that would work.
And like throw it across.
Maybe.
And try and drag the gold.
Because they've got hooks, haven't they?
Yeah, they do, actually.
Yeah, they do got hooks, yeah.
Did they leave it in the minis when they chucked them out?
I don't know, actually. Can't remember now.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I can't remember.
Well, you never know. I mean, if they're good thieves, if they're any decent, thievery team, they should have spares, realistically.
Yeah. So, favourite lines then? Mine is the classic one at the end. Hang on a minute, lads. I've got an idea. That would be mine. What's your favourite, David, then?
Well, to be honest, right, everyone always picks you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. But I do like, that's sort of it is a top line, but as a different line that's not that one or the one you just mentioned. The one that I like is it's Camp Freddy to Mr. Bridger. It's a conversation between Camp Freddy and Mr. Bridger. And Camp Freddy goes, maybe the professor's not bent. And then Mr. Bridger goes, Camp Freddy, everybody in the world is bent. And it's just so, I just think it's so quintessentially, of that era. And it just sums up the world of the Italian Job to a perfect T. It sums up, the characters' motivations all in one go. You think they look like nice, genteel gentlemen because they just like Michael Caine. He dresses in a nice suit. He can't be a bad man, can he? And then at the end of the day, you think, well, not really, because everyone under the surface is bent in some respect. So, that's, it's a nice metaphorical line, really. A nice little simple exchange. But I think it's a nice little line, I think. But, who wants to blow the bloody doors off is the comedy of the top. But I do like that little exchange with Camp Freddy and Mr. Bridger. I think, it just says it all and sums the film and its characters and the world up to a brilliant T, I think, personally.
Yeah.
I do like another one from Mr. Bridger where he's talking to one of the guys from Dad's Army, actually, and he says, last night, Mr. Governor, my toilet was broken into.
Yeah, that was funny. I like that, yeah.
That was good.
Toilet? Toilet.
Yeah, that was really funny. I like that.
That was great.
I think my favourite line is one with Mr. Bridger where they're at Great Aunt Nellie's funeral.
Oh, yes.
I liked how that ended. I just thought that was funny. where he's like, he gives a big speech, but then he says, "I also want to remind you that if you don't come back with the goods, Nellie here will turn in her grave, and likely as not, jump right out of it and kick your teeth in." You know,
and I feel like he wasn't lying either. Like, yeah, she will come out and kick their teeth in. The supernatural spin-off of this film.
Yeah, I just thought that is the best threat I've ever heard. Like a gangster gives to his underlings of like, my great aunt will jump out of her grave and kick your teeth. So surreal.
Well, it goes back to that saying of like, you think about the Cray twins, and you think about the film with the Kemp brothers in, and just the general idea of the Cray twins and like that mafia side of Britain, where the British mafia, where you've got this, you know, that hate everyone else, you know, the really dodgy guys, but you know, respect their mother. Otherwise, they will come for you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That kind of thing. So it kind of links nicely to that kind of old school, like that style, you know, that specific part of the genre. And I like the fact that it's turned in a comedy way as well. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
Boaz, screenplay score. What should we go with?
Oh,
I don't want to sound harsh, but I'm thinking 6s.
really? Oh, okay.
Sorry, David.
It's fine. It's fine.
Oh.
I just feel like there are scenes which are properly dated.
Oh,
and
yeah.
even with like the Lorna character, like she just gets sent back home. I'm like, why can't she be in on the heist? That's really harsh.
Yeah, I think that was kind of a shame because I thought she was quite funny. I like where she was slapping the shit out of him.
Yeah.
For, like basically having an orgy, you know, throwing out the girls' knickers. Like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, that was funny.
So they could have played on that joke some more, but no, he just sends her packing.
Honestly, I would have loved, because I think they might. I've erased the Mark Wahlberg version out of my head, to be honest, but they might have done it in that. But
Same.
I would have loved to have seen in this 60s style, get a genuine like 60s woman, you know, of the era, like speaking all groovy and everything, like proper opposite to Michael Caine as well, like proper like parallel then, sorry, not opposite, and like actually being a part of the leading heist, because that would have been really cool, really, you know, really a good dynamic as well. You could have them playing off each other. But yeah, like I do agree that there are plenty of bits in this that are very dated. Benny Hill is just 2 words I will use to sum that whole feeling up, really, to be honest with you. That is all I'll say.
Creepy as hell.
Very.
So like 6.4, 6.6,
6.9, 69.
6.7 then.
6.8.
All right. David, screenplay score.
Yeah, again, just purely because of like the dated scenes and like the missed opportunities with certain bits, and just a little bit of ploddiness in places where it could have been a little bit more like, you know, we could have had some more exciting stuff happening in the more mundane areas then, or making the mundane more exciting. I would probably go around the 6s as well. I would probably go as far to say maybe a 6.5, maybe I'd say. 6.5, I'd say.
Right, acting then. I did quite enjoy the performance from the Italian mafia boss, Ralph Valloni.
Yeah, I did.
When they catch Charlie in the Alps and push over the cars. He's just very polite and suave, like a Bond villain. Like, I love that bit where he's like, "Oh, excuse me," and waves his hand to the digger, and it crushes one of the cars. You know, it's like he's completely forgot to give the signal to crush the car because he was so busy teasing Charlie. You know, I love that scene. I thought I wanted a lot more of him.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I really did like him.
No, I think I do agree. I think, to be honest, I could we'll get to the actual scores in a minute, but like, I'm going to make it clear now that the only reason I'm dropping a score, and it's quite a high score for me personally, in terms of the performances, it's Benny Hill. That's the one. He's the one that loses it the marks, because honestly, Michael Caine leads it perfectly. He's
really good.
He's so good. I think, to be honest, to say that this is one of his best performances, you know, he's done many other really good performances, but for me, if people ask me, "Oh, what's your favorite Michael Caine film?" like, this one ultimately, up with I don't know. There's many.
Zulu.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'd say. But this one definitely is like it's in my top 3. I'd say my top 3 Michael Caine films. It's definitely enjoyable from start to finish from his performance. Anyway, as you say, Boaz, the mafia boss, like pitch perfect, like campy, jokey version of a James Bond villain, just in all the best ways, but still credible to the extent that you believe that he's a mafia boss and he's not just like a spoof character. And all the others like that play their parts, not including Benny Hill, are really good. So ultimately, I do think, you know, like besides its dated nature, because it is going to be a bit dated because it's the 60s, isn't it? It's the end of the 60s. It's an old film. It was done in its time. It's not like it's a film trying to be in the future, which we'll get to in part 2, or a film trying to be in the past. But this one's very much set in its day that it was made. So I do think the performances are brilliant, but my favourite will always be Michael Caine. He does like he's James Bond without being James Bond. He's like the likable James Bond, the one that we all want like to see and emulate and, you know, like experience in these kind of films. Personally, for me, anyway.
Yeah, he's kind of like the opposite of a Sean Connery, of a British character. Like, I think he pretty much carries this film with sheer charisma alone until the chase with the minis, and still he has quite a big presence in that chase. And I feel like this film, if it didn't have like a massive star like Michael Caine, it would be pretty bad, I think.
To be honest, it would definitely be a much lower scoring film, and Benny Hill's my hatred for Benny Hill's bits in this would bring it right down.
Yes, right down. What did you like about Michael Caine in this, Boaz?
I can't put my finger on it, but I think his character is pretty endearing, and so he's like really quite funny and very like not massively sure of himself to start with.
He's a little goofy, but doesn't push it too far.
Goofy, and he's like rambunctious and playful. But I think what's great is when he's actually, you know, the heist is getting going. Like he's a leader, you know, he's a natural leader, and it's very believable that he's, you know, his character is very like multifaceted. Do you know what I mean? It's, you know, and it's kind of it's quite believable. So I just feel he does a good, like, well-rounded view of this character.
So we all go Michael Caine for favorite performance.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be 100%. 100%.
Yeah, I quite like Bridger as well, even though I think he's a lot more one note as a character.
Yeah, Noel Coward.
I think he's also quite a lot of fun just because he's that posh upper class, you know, warden,
dry
boss, you know, very dry. But yeah, I would say Michael Caine is definitely my favorite.
Yeah, Noel Coward brings a lot of like...
He's like the criminal M.
A lot of humor as well, but just in a very different way. Yeah, criminal M,
He's the criminal M to, you know, to the criminal James Bond.
Yeah, that's literally what it is, pitch perfect.
That's very protective about his toilet.
Oh, very.
Acting score then, Boaz? What should we go with? 7.7?
Oh, that seems a bit high for me.
7.5?
Yeah, probably closer to what I'm thinking.
Yeah? Okay. David, what's your score for acting?
I mean, I'm probably going to take this way over the top because, as you can tell, that I do like the performance in this film. I will never say a film is 10 out of 10, and I will say that now. Sure. It's not 10 out of 10.
You're scaring me, David.
No film is perfect. No, don't worry, it's fine. I will lower a little bit. No, I'm going to give it purely because of Michael Caine and purely because of everyone else, not Benny Hill. That I'd give it a solid 7.7. I think solid 7.7 because, you know, it's not perfect, but Michael Caine he fills it up, and then everyone else just Benny Hill brings it down to 8, and then everyone else, which is sort of like all right, brings it like even out. So 7.7, I'd say, because of good old Caney boy.
Yeah.
Right, let's add up the scores then for The Italian Job. The Italian Job gets 43.5.
Could have been worse.
Could have been worse, yes.
Could have been worse. Looking at you, Benny Hill.
Yeah. That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.